Hi, I'm Andrew Morrison, and I want to give you an introduction to a process called listening to understand. If you're like me, you may have noticed over the last years, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, that there's been a tendency to not listen to each other when we speak across the aisle, especially in the political realm. This exercise can actually work in your home, in your business, in politics, really everywhere. But it's really something that's been missing in our political realm, I would say, certainly for the last 5 years or so. So the process is pretty simple. It does take two people in order to make this work because it's a process where you're listening to each other and you're understanding each other. You can use it in a one-sided way, just to listen and to be more respectful in how you listen to people and to take away some of the fire that sometimes happens in conversations. But if you want to be understood by the other person that you're listening to, they'll also need to participate in a similar way. So we'll have two people in the conversation. One person will be the speaker. The other person will simply listen. So their intention is to listen so that they understand what that speaker is saying. So there's no intention of responding or giving their opinion. In your mind, if you're the listener, take all of that out of your mind. Just put on the cap of listening. So as the person speaks, you'll go maybe 1, 2, 3 points into their conversation and say, okay, here's what I hear you say, and repeat back to them what it is that they're saying. And the important thing here is that you're saying what you hear. So it may be that that's not actually what the person's trying to say, and they'll have to revamp how they're speaking to you so that they can be understood. That's actually very helpful for the speaker to learn that maybe they're not being clear in how they communicate what their point is. So it's good for them to get clear on that. It also helps you make sure that you're understanding exactly what it is they're saying. So as you go through the process, take 3, maybe up to 5 minutes per person, just listen, repeating back, this is what I hear you saying. Once you both agree that, yes, that's what I'm saying from the speaker's point of view, then you can switch. So again, 3 to 5 minutes typically. Then you switch, and now the other person who was the listener becomes the speaker. Now the person who was speaking, this is a little bit harder because they have to now take off their hat of speaker and put on the hat of only listening. Again, not with the intention of, here's how I'm going to talk back on that point, or here's what I would say to that, but simply listening with the intention of understanding. Same process, you go 1, 2, 3 points in, say, this is what I hear you saying, make sure you're in agreement about what it is that's being said. And then when you come to the end of that, again, new 3 to 5 minutes, you'll both have an understanding of where each other is coming from. Now, this is not to convince anyone. You're not trying to convince the other person. You're simply stating what is true for you, and the person who's listening is simply trying to understand your point of view. That's it. So there is no need to respond. That's kind of an unusual thing in a conversation. People think that when they're speaking back and forth about, especially about a topic that may be a little contentious, that I have to convince that other person. And we're not even listening to each other anymore. We're just waiting for our time to turn. We're waiting for our time to speak. So instead of waiting for your time to speak, listen to what's actually being said. Let's give it a shot. Okay, so we're going to try this. This is my wife, Gabriella. We're going to try this now on an actual topic for us. We've been married almost 30 years. I love the Grateful Dead. She can't stand the Grateful Dead. So we've never actually used this process in this conversation. We've had the conversation many times about the Grateful Dead, but it never ends very well for us. So we're going to try something a little different. We're going to actually do this process. We're going to do the short version, 3 minutes each side. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Please.
Okay. Set my timer. Okay. So I think the Grateful Dead is one of the best bands in history. And I think this because they bring a lot of joy to a lot of people. Their music is completely dynamic and is always changing. Even though the songs are the same and the sound is the same, there's always intricacies. And as a musician, listening to all of that happening all at the same time is that all it provides is really exciting. They were like no other band when they first came onto the scene. They did something brand new that no one had ever done before, and did it really well. Do you want to start with those 3? Feed those back to me.
So what I hear you say is that you feel like some of their merits is that their impact from almost like a historical standpoint, that they were on the cutting edge of music, that they brought a lot of joy to a lot of people, and that they could take even the same songs and each time infuse them with their own new twists and interpretations. So very dynamic.
Yeah, very dynamic, exactly. Yeah, and I think the first point that you fed back historically, that they actually changed music. You know, I mean, people talk about how the Beatles changed music. Absolutely, I don't question that at all. The Grateful Dead did as well. There was no really such thing as the jam band, the way that they created that. Not that you like jam bands, but they created a whole style of music that didn't exist before. So yeah, historically, it was a big piece. For me, I think the thing that's so special is it's literally a physical response that I have in my body when I hear their music. It brings me back to memories of really fun times following them on tour, listening to their music live, and it's a physical memory of just joy. It brings a lot of joy to me. So as it brings a lot of joy to a lot of people, I'm one of those people. And it's nothing specific. It's not about a specific place. Some shows I'll hear, oh yeah, I remember being at that one or whatever, but it's really the music just brings joy to me.
So what I hear you say is that one of the things you really value in the music is that it evokes an emotional and really happy response for you, and maybe even touches into a really happy part of your life.
Yeah, exactly. We have 2 seconds left. I don't think I can get another piece in. Yeah, so that's what's true for me. And I'd love to hear why you don't like the Grateful Dead.
Thank you for sharing that. It was actually really helpful to hear some of those pieces, and especially emotionally how happy that it makes you. So there are, I guess, a few things that I don't like about the Grateful Dead. One, the biggest thing for me, and it's interesting hearing you talk about that it has like an emotional response for you. It also brings up a really strong emotional response for me, but for me it's really negative. My experience when I listen to the Grateful Dead is that their music, like the compilation of all the sounds, it exists in this like high sort of decibel range that it like makes me uncomfortable. It's not soothing. It's not like music I want to dance to or listen to in the background. It's not more like this grating experience that's happening in the background. So usually when you put it on and I'm listening to it, I feel emotionally uncomfortable.
Yeah, so I hear you saying that the music also has a physical response within you, but it's not of joy. It's a response of discomfort, and particularly about the overall sound, like the range of sound of where it is it's up high, and that literally creates discomfort within you, and unease, dis-ease perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, there was something about, you said all of the sounds together, and because they are known for improvising all of them at the same time, I'm curious if that also plays in. Like, is that also part of what the discomfort is, that it's like chaos, or is it just the sound?
No, it's the sound, because I feel like
sound.
I can listen to a lot of different music that has a lot of improvisation and really interesting things happening dynamically, but it really is like, but it just is all like in this high-pitched sort of range. So it's almost like this like tinny sound. And then one of the things that it's my judgment, is this thing about people listening to the same music that they've been listening to for decades. Like when you go to like a bar and people are playing, classic rock and the same music that people have been playing for decades. For me, I'm always like, we should be like on the cutting edge of music and, listening to new songs and new creations. There's something about that also that is just, I guess, a little uncomfortable for me, or like I'm not excited about listening to music. classic rock, and that's true for almost all classic rock songs.
So there's a place within music where I think what I hear you say is that there's a desire to continue to move forward and to find new things and to find excitement and different sounds and different experiences, and to sit and listen to the same music for 50 years seems
Yes.
like, haven't we heard this song before? Yeah.
Let's try something new.
Yeah, and that also creates an unsettling feeling for you. Like because you open with it's a judgment of yours. So
Yeah.
I wonder if there's belief structures underneath that judgment about people who listen to music, i.e. me,
Yeah.
the same music over these years. Like you might say you're the kind of person that X, Y, or Z. So there may be more for us to explore there about what it is that underlies that.
Yeah.
But there's definitely discomfort of listening to the same songs
Yes.
over and over again. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah. So how does it feel to have known that I heard what you said?
It was really good. I felt like there was more permission to kind of explore some of what my more underlying beliefs are about it, and then I also appreciate that it just feels like a casual conversation. Like you're not trying to change my mind, I'm not trying to change yours. We're just having a conversation. It just feels like a lot of safety. And again, this topic is so funny for us because in some ways it's so benign, but it's such a huge part of your life, and it's something that causes such a strong negative reaction in me. So we've really had to find ways to incorporate those aspects within our relationship. In some ways, it's like one of us is a Republican and the other is a Democrat in terms of musically. We're really, really very different.
Yeah.
And we both feel strongly about the music that we listen to. It's very emotional. Music is emotional.
Absolutely. Well, one of the great things that you said there, I mean, can I speak to the camera too? I'll speak to both of you. One of the things that I hear a lot is that there's this piece of safety. So there's something about knowing that the person is actually listening and knowing that the person that you're speaking to isn't preparing to retort. They're not preparing to come back and say, yeah, but this is the best band ever, or whatever the topic is. So it allows us as the speaker to have a little more comfort and feel a little bit more like you said, I can go a little bit deeper and kind of think a little bit more about some of the underlying pieces and feel comfortable in that, because I don't feel like the person I'm speaking to is going to come back and attack me or use what I just said against me or interject and say blah, 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 blah right in the middle of my conversation. That there's a respect that's given in setting up this exercise. Does that seem true? Yeah. So it's an interesting way to start a conversation. It's a great thing to practice with your loved one, with friends, before you go out and try to do it, at a big political demonstration. Maybe try to do it something a little more casual like this. And I think one of the big pieces is to really learn and practice what it feels like to be confident in what you say as a speaker. And that it doesn't matter what the other person says back. That's sort of the point of the safety that we were just discussing, is once you get to this point of feeling safe within yourself to have your opinion and to share your opinion, and the other person may say, I disagree and I think this, and then you can simply say, I hear that you disagree, and that's okay that you disagree. We can have differing opinions. That's okay. Can we find some common ground? We can't? Okay, that's fine. So we can't find common ground. This is a topic we don't agree on. And that's okay. It's okay to disagree. It doesn't have to be a fight. It doesn't have to be an argument. It doesn't have to become violent in words or in, heaven forbid, in action. It simply is okay to disagree with someone. And that's an unusual concept these days. Anything you want to share at the end?
Yeah, I wanted to share that having practiced numerous times being outside demonstrating and having people with very different political, just life views than me, that I have found it incredibly helpful to have the skill to listen and to go into those situations being open-minded and hearing what people have to say, knowing full well that they're not there for listening to understand. We're not having that exchange. But there is a benefit for, even if it's just a one-sided thing, if you're in conversation, communication with somebody that has a very strong belief structure, especially if they're really angry and they're really charged, it is an amazing tool to de-escalate somebody. It's just to listen and to repeat back to them. I've personally experienced that. Really helping to change some really intense dynamics that were happening on the street corner. And for people to soften, people that had so much anger and that were yelling, to suddenly soften the moment they felt like they were being heard and that they were being seen. And then we could engage into more of what I would say is a conversation. So it's very useful even if somebody else doesn't want to do the exercise.
Yeah, no, that's a huge point, and that piece of de-escalation is so large. And when someone comes at you screaming and you scream back, now you're in a screaming fit. Mm-hmm. You're just yelling at each other. If someone screams at you and you say, "Wow, I hear that you're really upset about this. This must be really important," without being condescending, right? Like it's a fine line. Of, "Oh, poor you. You sound really upset." Like you have to have the ability to really listen, and that's the difference. I think is your ability to listen to someone, hear what they're saying, and say, "I hear you." And feed that back to them. This is what I hear you saying, and you've actually heard. And I've watched it happen, and I've experienced it myself many times. It's amazing what the difference is when you do that. Yeah, and it's a skill, and you've always been good at that skill. So
thank you.
Yeah, well, I hope this is helpful. Yeah, it's a great practice. Again, start something simple and work your way up to the harder, more intense conversations. But it's something that I really believe has the potential to change how we're interacting in the world today, because something needs to change. And for me, I'm a true believer that listening is something that we can all do, and it's something that can make a huge difference.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.